and welcome to Sew with Christine. In today's tutorial, I will be sharing with you how I cut and sew this pants with two tiered gathers on each side of the pants. This pant has a bow tie at the center front and part of the waistband was shirred using smocking thread. This video covers the cutting and sewing process. So if this video is what you're interested in watching, then watch to the end to get the full value of this tutorial. But before we proceed, I would like you to subscribe to this channel. Don't worry, it is free. Hit the like button so that YouTube can push this video out for others to benefit from it. Do not forget to share and turn your post notification bell on so that you will get notified when I upload a new tutorial. I'm going to start by marking the crotch depth. And the crotch depth that I'm going to be using is 10 inches. So since the waistband is 4 inches, I'm going to keep my tape here at 4 inches, just directly on the tip of this paper. Then I will go ahead and mark down 10 inches. So just divide your hip by 4 and you get your crotch depth. So if you want your pants to go up on your waistline, then you add 1 inch to your measurements. After marking the crotch depth line here, I'll go ahead and mark the hip line. You can see my tape is still at the 4 inches on the paper there. I'm going to take down the same measurements here, then I'll go ahead and connect all these points. On the crotch depth line here, I'm going to mark the quarter hip measurement, which is 10 inches. I will do the same thing at the top part of this paper, and I'm going to connect like so. Afterwards, I'm going to mark the half tie measurement. You're going to get the circumference of your tie and you divide that by 2. So I'm going to mark the half measurement here, and I will use my curve ruler to connect upward like so. From the top part, I'm going to come downward by 14 inches. Note that when you want to mark any horizontal measurements, remember your 4 inches at the top. So you can actually reduce this or increase this if you want. But for this tutorial, I'm going to leave this at 14 inches. Next, I'm going to take the length of this pants, and I have this length at 43 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect this. This would be the length of the pants. So I'll just go ahead and label this, the hem, the crotch, which is C and H for hip. So this measurement that I have at the crotch area there, that's the crotch line, I'm going to transfer that measurement to the hem area like so. Then I will use my tape to draw a straight line downward. Now you can go inward on this line here just to give these parts a little shape, to tighten that part up if you want, but I'm going to leave this like so because I don't want that area to be fitted. But if you want yours to be fitted, then please take your measurements on that part so you get a fitted circumference. Afterwards, I'll go ahead and mark the knee line. So I actually wanted to use this knee line as the second joining for these gathers, but I realized that the length will be too short, so I'm just going to increase this. I'll go ahead now and increase this to 12 inches. I'm measuring from the first line. See the part where I labeled first line, so I'll come downward by 12 inches from that line. This will now serve as the second part. So the other one will serve as the third part. So at the top part here, I'm going to divide the quarter waist measurement by 2, and I will add 0.5 inch to that, as I'm going to add ½ inch to what I have. Then I will mark down my results at the top part. Then I'm going to add this tie extension to the results that I mark at the top. I'm adding this because I want a straight line, so I'll go ahead now and mark my results here. I just want to rule a straight line. So if you can get a straight line without doing all of this, making all of these marks, then it's fine. So just connect upward to the waist area. I'm trying to show you guys the parts that we'll be cutting off. All right, so I'll go ahead and cut these parts off. Then at the base there, I left my seam allowance, that's my hem allowance. Then I'm going to label this part front. Then I'll go ahead and mark 1 2 3 for each of these. Then I'll bring in this paper and lay this one over it. This new paper that I've just introduced would be for the back. We'll be drafting the back pattern onto this. So all we just need to do is to transfer what we have here. For the back, the difference is that you need enough paper to extend the upper part and the side. So I'll go ahead now and mark 2 inches for the seam allowance on these areas like so. Then when I get to the crotch depth here, I'm going to mark the 2 inches, then I'll add 1.5 inches for ease at the thigh region. Okay, then I'm going to continue marking 2 inches downward. After that, I'm going to connect like so. Then I will use my curve ruler to draw the curve like we did for the front part. Then I'll go ahead and connect these other areas down to the hem. Then coming to this upper area, I need to go up by 1.5 inches. So I'll just extend this line from the front so you see where I want to measure from. After marking this 1.5 inches, I'm going to connect from the center back to the side like so using a diagonal line. Then on the front pattern, I'm going to come downward by 1 inch and I'm going to connect to the side as well. Next, we need to confirm that we get our exact measurements after adjusting these areas. What you need to do is to measure those the waist area, that's the upper part. Now I just have little excess here, so I'm going to mark that part. Then I'm going to redraw that into the crotch curve like so. Next, I'm going to measure the length of these front parts, see where I'm measuring from. Then I'll also measure the back. Whatever excess I have there, I will just mark and reconnect. So this is how you do this. Then I'll go ahead and cut out this pattern. I'm going to extend these lines onto the back. So we are going to be working on the back pattern alone now. From here now, just divide your quarter hip measurements by 2 and mark that here. So I have 5 inches there. I'll just go ahead and connect straight down. Once I'm done connecting, I'll go ahead and label these parts. Then I'll mark this 1 2 3 so we don't miss this up by the time we are done cutting. Then I'm going to open up this line. I'll bring in the front pattern and also cut this line open. Next, I'm going to draw arrows to indicate the part that is towards the center front and towards the center back. Then I will just add B to each of the numbers for the back and F to each of the numbers for the front. So we have F1, F2, F3, B1, B2, B3. Alright guys, these are the pattern papers. We are done cutting them. So I'm going to take out some and leave the ones that we'll be working with now. So here we have number 2 and number 3 for the front and the back. These are what we'll be using to cut the gathers. And when we cut the gathers will not have side seam. So we are going to be cutting on fold. I'll place both of them together like so, and I'm going to measure the width for the top and the bottom. After measuring, I arrived at 13.5 inches for the top part and also the base. Then I'm going to take the length, and I have the length at 12 inches. Next, I'm going to measure the third one here. I'll take the width for the top part and the base. I have this at 13.5 inches as well. I'll go ahead and measure the length of these pants. Now, the length is 17.75 inches. I will just go ahead and write down what I got on the papers like so. I have 13.5 by 17.75 and 13.5 by 12. Here's the fabric that I would be using for these pants, and I have 3 yards of this fabric here, but I would advise you make use of 3.5 yards so that the bow tie, when you're making your own bow tie, it will be longer and you will not need to join the bow tie at all, because I actually joined the bow tie. So I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric, and this is it. This for the front and this is for the back. See the areas I wrote seam allowance, that is where you are going to add seam allowance. So on this part, I'm not going to add seam allowance there because the back part already has the seam allowance of 2 inches, so it will cover for these areas. But for this middle here, we need to add the seam allowance because that's where we are going to be joining the other piece to this. And for the gathers, this is the first one. I've gone ahead to cut this, and I have the width at 13.5 by 2.5 inches. Remember, the width of this is 13.5 inches, so I just multiply that by 2.5 inches to get the width of this first one. And for the length, I added seam allowance at the top and the bottom part. I cut 2 of these for both legs also. And for the other pattern, I also went ahead to cut 2 pieces each. And this is the other one, that's the one that will be at the base. The width is 13.5 inches. I multiplied this by 4 and I got 54 inches, so I added 1 inch seam allowance to that, so that is 55 inches. And I added seam allowance also to the top area of this. Now I'm going to measure this so we can see what we have here. Since this is on fold, you are going to get half of 55 inches. Now this is the second part of this fabric that I've gone ahead to cut. When I measure, I got 55 inches, okay? But when it is on fold, you are going to get half that value. All you just have to do is cut 2 pieces of each of these pattern that we have here. See the way I arrange this B2 and F2, B3 and F3. That is how you arrange yours when you want to cut the fabric for the gathers. Next, I'll go ahead and notch the top part and the bottom part. Just fold them so that you get the midpoint. Once you get the midpoint, then make your notches. Next, we are going to be joining this, and for us to do that, I'm going to place this opposite each other. Remember when we cut this, they were facing the same direction? No, if you want to join this, you have to place them the opposite way. That is the right way to place this. I'm going to label this CFCB. So by the time I place this the opposite way, you understand what I'm saying? The CB, that's the center back, will need to face this direction. The center front will be facing this direction. That is how they need to face for you to know that you have placed them correctly. Next, I'm going to place them right side facing right side, and I'll pin them down. I'll pin this other one. Once I'm done pinning, I'm going to run my stitches on them. And this is it, guys. I'm done stitching them up, and you can see what this looks like. Next, I'm going to bring the first fabric for the gathers. I'll bring this in, and next I'm going to take off the pins. After that, I'll be running my gather stitch onto this so we can stitch this up to this fabric that we have just joined. And this is it, guys. I've gone ahead to run my gather stitch onto this, so I'm just going to pull the thread like so and place this right side facing right side onto this fabric. Then I'm going to draw my gathers After drawing, I will use my pins to secure them down in place, ensuring that they are evenly distributed. I'm going to pin them down. After pinning, I will sew onto this area that I've pinned. So I've gone ahead to sew this, and this is it. Now that we are done with this part, next is for us to join the other one to the base. So I'm going to bring in the bigger one, and I will place this right side facing right side, and I will draw the gathers. Now when you are drawing the gathers, ensure that the notched areas are well aligned. Then I'll go ahead and pin them up. You distribute the gathers evenly and then you pin. Once I'm done pinning, I'm going to sew this down. I will also do the same thing for this second part. Know that we are working on both legs now. I'm going to sew these two gathers onto these other parts of the pants, and this is it. I am done stitching this up. So this is the first one for one part of the pants, and this is the second one. Next, I'm going to arrange this so that the front part is facing up. Then I'll bring in the front piece. This is the front piece, that's the center front. This is it. I'm going to place the center front onto the side front like so, and I'll pin this down. So right now I'm going to be working with one part of the pants so that you don't get confused. So once I'm done pinning this center front, I will now bring the center back in. I'll go ahead and take off the pins from the center back. Then I will pick one of this and place this onto the side back like so, and I will pin from the top to the bottom. Once I'm done pinning, I'll go back to the sewing machine and I'll run my stitches from the top to the bottom. I'm done stitching this up, and I've also gone ahead to iron this, and this is what we have here, guys. From this part is the back, from here to this side is the front. What I will be doing next is to join the sides. I'm going to fold this like so, right side facing right side, and run my stitches down. I'm going to bring in the second part of the pants and fold this way, then run my stitches as well. This is it. I am done stitching this up, and you can see our pant is coming to life gradually. Next, I'm going to bring the crotch area together this way, and I would pin. I'll pin from the middle to the upper areas. Then I'm going to run stitches over the pinned parts. We are done stitching the main body of this pants. As you can see, this is what we have here. So the next thing that we'll be working on now will be the waistband. This is a piece of fabric that I will use for the cutting of the waistband. We left 4 inches for the waistband. For this, I'm going to be marking 4.5 inches. Then I'm going to measure these front parts. That's the 2 center fronts that we have there, where we have that cut. I'll measure from this part to the other part of the center front. I have that at 6.5 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance to that. That will be 7.5 inches. Then that will be the width of this. Then the length will be 4.5 inches. I'll go ahead and cut that out. Next, we are going to cut the remaining parts of the waistband. So measure from where you stopped on the pants, where you stop measuring on the pants, that's at the waist area. Measure the remaining parts of the waist there. Whatever you have there, you are going to cut that out on your fabric. For this, I have that at 34 inches. So I'll go ahead now and mark 34 inches, and I'm going to cut that out. And this is it. This is what it looks like. You see, I'm going to bring in the first cutout and I'll place them together like so, so you see what the band will look like. Next is the bow tie. Like I said, I didn't really have so much fabric for this bow tie, so I'm going to be extending the length of this with this piece of fabric that I have here. I'll go ahead and I'll cut this. Now the width of this bow tie that I have here is 4.25 inches. I'll have to use 0.25 inch to sew this. That will serve as the same allowance because I want the width of this bow tie to still be 4 inches. By the time I'm done joining this, I should have about 58 inches for the full length. Then I'm going to divide that by 2 to serve as 2 equal halves for this bow tie. Alright guys, now for the waist parts, we are going to be sharing this waistband. And for us to do that, we are going to be making use of smocking thread. This is the thread we'll use. You can see it's an elastic thread. You're going to use your hand to reel this thread onto the bobbin like so. And when you are reeling, don't pull it, don't drag it at all, just let it go very free, very smooth. So I'm going to reel it, and by the time I'm done reeling, I will bring the bobbin case. Before you fix this bobbin into the case, you have to loosen the screw there, loosen it, because we want this to be very free. So I'm going to insert the bobbin into the case and see how free this is. After checking, I realize it's not so free, so I'll go ahead and loosen it a bit more again. Afterwards, I'm going to fix this in, then we'll begin to sew. Now at the top part here, I left about 0.25 fabric at the top part because I want to add an extra elastic through it. I want to pass an elastic through that space, so that is why I left that there. All right, next, for you to sew this, you have to sew using your gather stitch. It shouldn't be tight, just let it run very free. And when you sew, don't pull the back parts, don't pull it at all, so that you don't stretch the elastic. Now this is the second layer that we are going to be running here. This is where you determine the width. So I would be using 0.25 inches width for each of these sewing that I will be doing on this piece of clothes. So if you want to do 0.5, I think 0.5 should be the highest you should go. For this, 0.25 is just perfect for this. So I'll keep sewing this way till I get to about half an inch at the base that I will use for my seam allowance. So this is just how to go about this, guys. It's not a difficult thing. Just when you are sewing, don't pull at the back, and ensure your tension is not tight. Nothing is tight. When you're making this, everything should be loose and free on your machine, and you're good to go. So I'll keep sewing this till I get to the desired length that I want this to get to. And this is it, guys. I am done stitching this up. So like I said, I want to add an extra elastic to the waist area. I want this to be smoother and tighter at the top area, so I will be using this elastic for that. So observe what the top area looks like now before I'm going to pass this elastic, and you see the difference. To pass this elastic, I just use my needle. I place my needle in between the elastic and I use a thread to tie this up, and that's it. I'll be using this now to pass the elastic into this channel. And this is it, guys. I am done passing this. Next, I'm going to pin this up. I went ahead to reduce the length of this elastic a bit. Okay, just ensure by the time you do your reduction, you measure the waistline, it will still be very free to pass the hip area. Alright guys, I'm done passing the elastic through this top area, and you can see how smooth this part looks now. Next, I'll go ahead to secure the sides. I'm going to sew the sides in place, both of them. I am done stitching this up. You can see how beautiful this is. Look at the top area. It now looks very smooth and very professional. So this is how you do yours when you are making something like this. Now for the bow tie, here is the fabric. I'll go ahead and fold this into two. Then from the base here, I'll come up by 4.5 inches. Then I'll draw a diagonal line like so. After that, I'm going to cut along that line. Then I'm going to sew from the top part down to the sharp edge, and I'll do the same thing for the second part of the bow tie. I'm done stitching up the bow tie, and this is what it looks like. I've also turned this to the right side. Next, I'm going to place the bow tie onto the right side of this. Then I would pin this down. After that, I'll bring in the second bow tie, and I'm going to place this one on this side too. When you place your bow tie onto the band, place it ½ inch above the base of the band, because that ½ inch is what you're going to use to stitch this band to the main pants. I'll go ahead and pin this up. Once I'm done pinning, I'm going to sew on those areas. And here we are, I'm done stitching that up. Next, I'm going to bring the waistband extension, the one we have at the center front, and I will notch the midpoints. After notching, I'm going to place this center front waistband over this one like so. I'm going to use this to wrap it up like you're sandwiching the longer one in between the shorter waistband. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to sew this up. So this is what it looks like. You can see our stitches are not even visible because we've used this to cover the stitches up. So I'll do the same thing for the other end. I'll bring in this center front band and I'll use it to wrap this bigger one up like so. Just wrap it up and ensure that the notch part is at the top, that's the upper area of the band, just like so. Once this is secured, I'll go ahead and stitch this down. And this is it, guys. I'm done stitching this up, so I'll turn this now so you can see what we have here. Now you see how neat this looks. Both the right side and the wrong side are very neat. So this is how you should make yours by the time you are ready for your own projects. Next is for us to fix the band onto the pants. So what we'll do, we'll first of all get the midpoints of the front and the back parts, then we are going to notch. After notching, we'll place this band right side facing right side and we'll begin to pin them down. For the areas that have the elastic, you have to stretch that part out by the time you want to pin this onto the pants. So once I'm done pinning this, I'll go to the sewing machine and I will sew around the waist area. And here we are, guys. I've gone ahead to sew the waistband onto the pants like so, and you can see the outcome here. So this is just how to go about making this pant like this. It is now up to you to tweak this into what you want this to look like. If you want a free pant, if you want it tight, if you want it high-waisted, however you want it, just go ahead and do it your own way. Like I said, for you to be on the safer side when cutting your pants, you should use 3.5 yards, and also depends on your body size. For this, I made use of 3 yards and I had to join some fabric to the length of the bow tie just to achieve this, and still it didn't give the length that I wanted. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know in the comment section if you're going to be trying this out, and do not forget to subscribe, like and share. I'll see you in the next one.